Could I ask those in the public gallery to now switch off their mobile phones and electronic devices in accordance with the conditions of entry to the Council Chambers Public Gallery. In accordance with Regulation 14I of the Local Government Administration Regulations 1996, this meeting is being audio and video recorded and live streamed on the Shire's website. Under Clause 6.16 of the Shire's Meeting Procedures Local Law 2020, I do not give permission for any other person to record the proceedings of this meeting. By being present at this meeting, members of the public consent to the possibility that their image and voice may be live streamed to the public. Recordings are also made available on the Shire's website following the meeting. Please note that any items discussed behind closed doors will not be live streamed. However, once the meeting is open again to the public, live streaming will recommence. Councillors, please remember to turn your microphone on prior to speaking and speak clearly into the microphone. Item 2, attendance and apologies. Councillor Virgo is an approved leave of absence. Councillor Cooper and Councillor Marmot have requested and been granted approval to attend this meeting electronically via Microsoft Teams in accordance with Administration Regulation 14CA and 14C5. We do have Councillor Marmot and Councillor Cooper online. Thank you. Councillor Cooper, as per the Administration Regulation 14CA5, can you please confirm that you can maintain confidentiality during the meeting, including during any closed part of the meeting?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Councillor Marmot, can you please confirm that you can maintain confidentiality during the meeting, including during any closed part of the meeting?
Yes, I can.
Thank you, Councillor Marmot. Item 3, declarations of interest. There are none. Not like that. Yep. Impartiality interest, there are none. And proximity interest, there is none. Councillors, are there any other declarations of interest not yet submitted? No, thank you. Item 4, public question time. There are guidelines that need to be adhered to in our council meetings. During public question time, people speaking are not to personalise any questions about elected members or staff or use any possible defamatory remarks. In accordance with Clause 6.17 of our Meeting Procedures Local Law 2020, a person addressing the Council shall extend due courtesy and respect to the Council and the processes under which it operates, and shall comply with any direction by myself as the presiding member. A person present at or observing a meeting shall not create a disturbance at the meeting by interrupting or interfering with the proceedings, whether by expressing approval or dissent, by conversing or by any other means. A minimum of 15 minutes will be allocated for public question time. Each member of the public is entitled to ask up to 2 questions before other members of the public will be invited to ask their questions. A reminder that public question time is an opportunity to ask questions, not to make statements. Can I remind the public that public questions are to be submitted no later than 12 noon on the day of the council meeting. If you have several questions you wish to submit, please provide these in advance of the deadline to give officers sufficient time to respond. Public questions at a special meeting of council must comply with Regulation 7.4b of the Local Government Administration Regulation, which specifies that the council is not required to respond to questions unrelated to the purpose of the meeting. Are there any questions from members of the public present? There are no questions. Public question time is now closed. Item 5, reports from officers. Performance 5.4.1, council consideration of public submissions on intention to impose differential rates and minimum payments for the 25-26 annual budget. The Director Corporate Services has advised that there has been an amendment made to the report and officer recommendation since publication. This is highlighted on the screen and will be reflected in the minutes. We do have a report recommendation there. Did you want to, before I ask for a mover and a seconder, I'll just ask the Director of Finance. corporate services and everything else. Would you like to make some comments?
Thank you, through the chair. This item presents back submissions to council following the advertising of the notice of intention to impose rates on the 1st of May. There's a 21-day submission period which closed last Thursday, 22nd of May. We did not receive any submissions by the close of the 4 p.m. deadline. However, we did receive one submission early on Friday the 23rd. That item related to a specific property, not necessarily the objects and reasons that were published as part of the differential rate model, nor did it really refer to the rate model. So while we have considered that submission, we officers don't believe that it has any impact on the differential rating model that's been advertised or proposed by council. The item does contain a couple of changes to the budget since the previous item was presented earlier in May. You may recall that there were some changes through the 1st of May Ordinary Council meeting to the Finance, or to the Audit and Risk Committee recommendation. That recommendation allocated some savings, organisational savings from 24-25 off the Cable Beach Stage A1 borrowings, which had flow-on impacts to principal and interest payments in the 25-26 budget year. There was a reduction in the org savings allocation, but that recommended amount had already been included in the draft budget model. So the overall impact of that was actually an increase in the principal and interest repayments for 25-26 of a little under $4,000. There was also some discussion in that on that item around allocation of funds towards the Mail Oval Master Plan, and a council resolution was passed allocating funding instead towards the library feasibility study. The library feasibility study was budgeted in council's long-term financial plan at roughly $50,000 less than the Mail Oval Master Plan, so there was a saving there of around $50,000. And finally, there was an item that was presented to council regarding elected member superannuation and some changes resulting from advice received from the Department of Local Government subsequent to the last council budget workshop. In short, that resulted in about a $4,000 saving to the quarantined amount that was allocated towards elected member super in the draft budget. Following those changes, we received our UV revaluations. So you might recall when the 1st of May ordinary council meeting item went up for the intention, special meeting went up for the intention to impose rates. The UV valuations had not been received. We received those on the 6th of May. Overall, there was a drop in valuations of around about $1 million, resulting in a drop of valuations of about $96,000. So that, coupled with some of the changes to the rate model and the savings from the budget changes, resulted in around about a $99,000 deficit in terms of the budget model that was presented as part of the item to impose differential rates. At the 1st of May meeting and following GRV revaluations, council settled on an approach whereby the 24-25 rate in the dollar was used to set the rate yield. Following revaluations being received, that rate yield was subsequently used to model the rate in the dollar. So obviously the valuations for GRV went up significantly, and as a result the rate in the dollar figures dropped. Following the UV valuations being received, we've taken the same approach. So we've gone away and figured out the yield based on the 24-25 rate in the dollar, and then we've worked backwards, if you will, from that yield to set the UV rate in the dollar as well. It's resulted in some changes to the UV valuation figures, the UV rate in the dollar figures, which are in the item. There is a table in there that shows minimum payments, and it also shows the rate in the dollar from the 28th of April special versus the proposed rate in the dollar in this item. And you can see that commercial rural has gone up, mining has gone up, and rural has gone down slightly. As part of this item, we are requesting that council advise the CEO to seek ministerial approval for a couple of differential rating categories that are more than double the base rate. Within the GRV differential rating categories, the vacant and tourism are more than double, and within the UV rating categories, commercial, rural and mining are both more than double the base rates. We'll be seeking council resolution to go away and ask for ministerial approval. I think that pretty much sums it up, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Marr.
Just one, sorry. Director, the $50,000 for the survey, biannual survey, that went back in?
Through the Chair, the original council resolution was to use organisational savings from 24-25 to fund the biennial community survey. So that will appear as a budget project, but it's used organisational savings from the third quarter finance and costing review to fund that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of the Director? If not, go ahead. Oh, Councillor Smith.
Could you please just explain how, it's just not clear to me how we're getting the deficit back?
Sorry, one thing that I did not stop on was when following the adjustments to the budget and the UV revaluations, we settled on the approach that council had used for the GRV model, and we utilised that approach to set the yields for the UV model. And what that has done overall, post the changes to the budget model through the FACA, it's basically resulted in a 35k surplus. So when we run the rating model using that approach, we end up with a 35k surplus. And while it's not written into the resolution, within the item, it does state that officers are recommending that 35k surplus is used to offset Cable Beach Stage 2 loan, but that won't be done until council adopt the budget at the June ordinary council meeting.
But there's a 99,000-ish deficit as a result of the new valuation figures that have come through. So how are we countering that?
So when the UV figures, the valuations dropped $1 million, which resulted in that overarching deficit, but that was using the prior RIDs. So what we've done is we've gone back and had a look at the RIDs and set the rate model based on the new RIDs to hit the yield that we need. Because there's only 3 categories within the UV properties, the amount of, I guess, dollars generated through yield is less, and there's less ability, I suppose, to adjust the RIDs to end up with it balanced. So we have ended up with a surplus when we've gone back and done the remodelling.
Okay, happy with that?
I'm still a bit confused, but yeah.
It is confusing, and we've had this problem last week trying to enunciate what's happened without using spreadsheets, because it is a bit difficult to follow when we're using words. But basically, we ended up with an advertised model that had an overall yield of rates. In this case, it was $30.441 million. We've had changes to the principal interest loans, which has resulted in about a $4,000 deficit, so an increase in costs, and we've had savings from the elected member super, which is about $4,000, so they've nilled each other out. There's been about $50,000 savings from the Mail Oval project converting into the library feasibility study, and that's basically ended up with us having around $30.391 million that we need to raise. When we've run the rates model utilising the new valuations, we've ended up with $30,427,000. So when we're comparing the overall dollars, that results in additional rates generated of about 35,700k surplus. So it's the valuations have been adjusted using the same approach as GRV, which we feel is reasonable in the circumstances, given that GRV and UV have both been revalued. We've taken the same approach to both of those groups of properties. We think that's easy for staff, for rate staff particularly, who are dealing with customers. We think it's easier for the ratepayer to understand having that standardised approach. But when we do that, it ends up generating a little bit more in the UV rate yield than ideally we'd like. If it had come out balanced, that would have been ideal. It's come out a little bit surplus, but we're suggesting that that's pushed off the loan for Cable Beach Stage 2.
Okay. Councillor Lewis.
Can you remind me then what is the increase that residential people will pay in their rates, and is it what we talked about at the workshop?
Through the chair, that's a good question. Yes, it's remained the same. So the GRV valuations haven't changed. We've really just had to do some work on the UV valuations. So it's 4.26% was where we arrived. And council might recall we were aiming for 4.25, but again, with the modelling, it's just not possible to get it quite at 4.25. So we've ended up at 4.26.
Okay, thank you, councillors. Do I have direction from council? Are you happy to move the motion, councillor Taylor? Seconded, councillor Smith?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got a mover and seconder. Any dissent on that item? If not, councillor Cooper, you're in favour?
Yes.
Councillor Mahmood?
Yep.
Declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 6, meeting closed to the public. There is no need to. Item 7, meeting closure. There being no further business, I declare the meeting closed at 4:19 p.m. Thank you, councillors, for your attendance.